For those of you that didn't make your league's final, let's forget about that for now and look forward to 2026 fantasy football drafts. We're just going to highlight the first round here. Everything later in the draft is very susceptible to changes over the offseason due to free agency, the draft. But the first round, we have a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like already. If you're doing best ball drafts over the offseason, then this kind of content is perfect for what you are doing. And if you're just curious about what it's going to look like come draft season next year, here's your start. We have a new 101 in 2026, and that is Puka Nacua, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Rams. As long as Matthew Stafford is healthy, is playing in the NFL, hasn't retired, I want Puka Nacua as my top wide receiver for my fantasy teams. Despite getting banged up a couple times throughout the 2025 season, Puka has been the model of consistency. He's averaging 114 yards on the season and over 8 receptions. Really, the only part of Puka's game that hasn't been absolutely dominant is his touchdown production. Devontae Adams has been the primary red zone threat in LA, and Puka, as we've seen throughout his career, is okay in the red zone. He gets some touchdowns, but he is not a top performer there so far in his career. Still, with that being the case, he's leading the NFL in points per game right now, leading fantasy wide receivers. The way I look at it, if Puka can put up wide receiver 1 overall numbers without being a serious touchdown threat, if he does have an outlier season on the touchdown front, then we could be looking at like 2021 Cooper Kupp numbers. We could be looking at a historic wide receiver season, and that is something you need to target in your fantasy drafts. Just to put into context how special this season's been for Puka, he has a 4.02 yards per route run. The difference between him and the wide receiver 3 on the season in yards per route run is the same as the difference between wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 69. That's just how dominant above the rest of the receivers Puka has been. Going back, I went back in data back to 2008 and couldn't find anyone that came even close to Puka's yards per route run mark this season. That's how efficient he's been. Moving on to the number 2 in this first round, it's Ja'Marr Chase. Ja'Marr Chase was the 101 going into this season, and while it's been a fairly disappointing season because of the Joe Burrow injury and what that entailed at the quarterback position for the Bengals, Chase is right back up producing as a top wide receiver. I think too many people have those few weeks where the Bengals were without Joe Burrow and before the Joe Flacco trade, where Chase was really inconsistent, had some bad weeks. It has been so much better since then. Despite Burrow missing all that time, Chase is still wide receiver 4 in points per game, wide receiver 3 in yards per game. He's second in receptions per game and first in targets among wide receivers. It's simple. There's no reason to dock Chase much at all from where we had him at the beginning of the season, and that was the very obvious 101 in a tier of his own. The only reason he has fallen at all here is because of how historically good Puka has been this season. Now, I know people will mention Burrow's comments, some cryptic comments about like his future with the Bengals, his future in the league. I'm not putting much weight into that at all. I imagine Burrow will be around next year. If anything, this makes me think that the front office for the Bengals is going to look into really bolstering the offensive line to keep Joe Burrow on his feet and healthy. If that is the priority through the offseason, then that's helpful for 2 reasons for Chase. First, Burrow is on his feet. He's healthy. He has more time to throw it down the field to his receivers. And second, it means that there's less investment going on in this horrendous defense that the Bengals have, a historically bad defense. And if that's the case, if this defense continues to be terrible going into next year, the Bengals are going to be in game scripts where they are throwing the ball down the field. That is great for Chase's fantasy production. Now, number 3, I have a third wide receiver here at the top of the draft, and that is Jackson Smith-Njigba now. A lot of people are probably going to have JSN as their 101 going into 2026, and I totally get it. He's the wide receiver 3 in receptions per game, number 2 in yards per game. He's 4th in touchdowns per game, all adding up to the wide receiver 2 in points per game on the season. Now, I mentioned how amazing Puka's yards per route run numbers were. The reason that I compared him to wide receiver 3 and not wide receiver 2 is because JSN is having almost just as great of a season. He is at 3.75 yards per route run. So in this season, it ranks second. Going back to 2008, since 2008, that ranks third in yards per route run. So JSN in almost any other season would be by far the most efficient wide receiver. He just happens to be playing in the same season that Puka has put up incredible production. Now, JSN's done all this with his team ranking 22nd in pass attempts. That may make you think that he has more room to grow, but keep in mind that the Seahawks have also been very efficient so far this season, leading the league in yards per attempt. Now, the reason I have JSN down here at third is I'm just not sold on Sam Darnold yet. He has looked very good this season. He looked good last year with the Vikings, but we've seen with these later in their career breakout kind of quarterbacks that success from season to season is not guaranteed. It's more variable with these guys that haven't proven it the way that Joe Burrow has and the way that Matt Stafford has. All right, it's not all wide receivers on this list. At number 4, I've got Bijan Robinson. He is my top running back going into 2026, even though he is the RB4 in points per game so far this season. I think the main reason that I'm high on Bijan taking that step up to the RB1 overall is just positive touchdown regression. The top 3 running backs, the running backs ahead of Bijan this season, have 18, 14, and 16 touchdowns, total touchdowns, respectively. Bijan only has 8 on the season. Now look no farther than the rest of this Falcons backfield. Tyler Algier also has 8 touchdowns, all rushing so far this season. Tyler Algier is a free agent after this season. With a fairly weak running back class in this year's draft, I expect that Algier could pick up a bigger contract than the Falcons are willing him to pay to be maybe a 1A, 1B situation on another team. And on top of all of that, Bijan has been better when Penix is playing. Once they're shuffling through these backup quarterbacks with Kirk Cousins, with injuries at the quarterback position, Bijan struggled a little bit more. That to say, it's more of an inconsistency thing. His average goes down about 3 points per game playing without Penix than with. So with a healthy Penix next year, hopefully an offense that has more time to gel, then Bijan absolutely has that ceiling to be the RB1 overall. Right behind Bijan at number 5, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's the RB3 on the season so far, and this really comes down to we've seen what Jahmyr Gibbs can do, and we've seen what this Detroit Lions offense is. 2 years in a row, they're over 30 points per game, one of the top offenses in the league, scoring the football and running passing. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is involved in both facets of the game. Gibbs also has room to grow. Of the top 10 wide receivers in production, he has, by a good margin, the lowest volume so far this season. That's specifically rushing the ball. If he does take over some more of the ground game away from David Montgomery, then we really have an exceptional ceiling here with Gibbs. But in this offense, even if he has a lower volume than some of the other running backs, that scoring upside is absolutely worth being the RB2 here. Number 6, we're back to wide receiver, but still with the Lions in Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think Amon-Ra has been disrespected just too much. Every chance people get, they want to talk about him being replaced by Jameson Williams or Sam Laporta or whoever in this Lions offense taking work away from Amon-Ra. It just hasn't happened. This is the model of consistency at the wide receiver position. Right now, Amon-Ra is on pace for his 3rd straight season, finishing as the wide receiver 3. That is great production, great consistency. He stays healthy. And at this point in the first round, I absolutely love having that guaranteed PPR weapon to just plug into my wide receiver spot week in and week out. If Amon-Ra was the safe, consistent, easy bet, then number 7, I'm going the high risk, high reward wide receiver with Malik Nabers. Through his 3 weeks of healthy play this season, a very small sample size obviously, Nabers averaged 10.7 targets a game. That would have ranked 2nd over the course of the full season up to this point. It just shows how much this Giants team needs Malik Neighbors out there. I'm sold on the skill on Neighbors. I don't know if you are, but go ahead, watch the tape. He is just a special kind of wide receiver. And now we're looking at a possible QB upgrade, or at least a QB that's more suited to what Neighbors does really well, and that is win down the field. On the season, Jackson Dart is second in his frequency of throwing the ball deep down the field, so 20 plus yard air yard throws down the field. He's second in frequency there, and that's with a team that is not well suited for that type of game. Once you add Malik Neighbors back into this offense, then Dart has a real weapon that he can use in that way. And I think Neighbors, we're going to be looking at another 170 target kind of season if he stays healthy, but now with more upside, these big play abilities. Number 8, I have Drake London. He was absolutely on a roll before his injury. Him and Michael Penix were getting things together. He had 5 of his last 6 games before the injury, had over 100 receiving yards. He was looking absolutely dominant. What everyone was projecting coming into this season was coming true, and then this injury slowed things down. Still, he's in the top 10 of every major statistical category on a per game basis. And with Penix coming back next year, back into the lineup, I imagine that Drake London will step right back in where he left off, and that is a top wide receiver in the NFL. Number 9, I've got Devon Achane here. He has been so consistent this year. As someone earlier in his career that everyone thought was going to be a big boom bust kind of player, he's just been super consistent. RB17 has been his lowest finish on a week so far this season. He is consistently giving you RB1 numbers, at least RB2 numbers, and high-end RB2 numbers, if that's where he is. The offense for the Dolphins has been horrendous. We cannot lie about that. But through those struggles by the offense generally, Achane has still produced. He's the RB5 in points per game this season. We saw it last year when the offense was struggling, his ability as a pass catcher. And we saw in his rookie season, when this offense is more explosive, when he's playing with real producers around him, his efficiency can absolutely skyrocket. So we have, I think, a great floor combined with maybe the best ceiling in all of fantasy football here with Achane, and that is someone I'm absolutely looking at in the first round. Number 10 is Jonathan Taylor here. He moves up into the first round. He wasn't being drafted there at all last year, but we've seen him come back with a huge resurgence this season for the Colts. This Colts offense has taken a huge step with Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones has now a torn Achilles. We don't know who's going to be under center for the Colts next season. If it's Anthony Richardson, that takes away a lot of that touchdown upside for Jonathan Taylor, and that's really where he scores his fantasy points. He's got 18 touchdowns on the season. That makes up for his lack of pass catching in his game compared to the other top backs in this class. Even though that hasn't been a 0 this season, he's not nearly as prolific of a pass catcher enough to warrant going any higher for me in the first round of drafts next year. That touchdown production I don't think can be replicated year to year, but still, we see what Jonathan Taylor can do. He can be one of the best pure rushers in the league. It's just for fantasy, I have to drop him down a little bit because of that Daniel Jones injury and the lack of pass catching. Number 11 here is the running back 1 so far on the season. That's Christian McCaffrey. I was a big proponent of taking him early in the first. He was the 102 for me in a lot of drafts this past season. And it really just came down to health. If he could bounce back, he has the ceiling to be the RB1 overall, and that's exactly where he is. Now, the problem for next year is CMC's on pace for about 420 touches in the regular season alone, with an expected playoff run on top of that. Once you get into that kind of workload as a 30-year-old running back, especially a running back who has the injury history that Christian McCaffrey has, I'm just not confident enough in his ability to stay healthy across a 17-game season, and for that reason, I have to drop him down here. He's still in the first round because the ceiling is just so high with McCaffrey. It's just a matter of health pulling him back right now. And the last pick here in the first round, I've got a wide receiver to close it out, CD Lamb. Now, Lamb's season has been somewhat disappointing. Some injuries. Pickens has taken away some of the volume in this offense that he was projected to get, but still, he's the wide receiver 10 this season in points per game, despite all of that. There's also a game earlier in the season. He left the game like a few snaps in, didn't even have a target before leaving the game. And if you take away just that game from his averages, he goes from 15.8 PPR points per game to 17.3 PPR points per game. That would bring him up to wide receiver 8 on a points per game basis, and make him really fitting to be here in the top 12 of next year's drafts. I think we've got a great floor here with Lamb in all of his healthy games. He's finished as a top 30 wide receiver, and obviously lots of wide receiver 1 finishes in there as well. Right now, Pickens has taken away some of the volume, especially on the touchdown side, but that's something that may not continue on into next year. Defenses may adjust to this new scheme with the 2 wide receivers. It's also not a guarantee that Pickens is back next year, although I'd project he is. And really, the tiebreaker here between Pickens and Lamb in this spot, beyond just how long Lamb's been doing it compared to Pickens at a high level, is Pickens still has this off-field or attitude issue that can pop up at times. We've already seen it with the Cowboys, times where he just doesn't seem to be putting in full effort, doesn't seem to be running hard on some of his routes. And I think that's something that could lead to some friction with the offense, with the coaching staff, with Dak Prescott, and bring Lamb into a larger role again in this offense as the clear number 1. I hope you like this content. It's very early to be doing this 2026 draft content, but we know there's a ton of you out there that are already looking into it, that are getting ready for your best ball drafts this offseason. I'm going to try and bring you some more best ball content this offseason, so if you're not already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel here. If you have any Dynasty leagues and looking to rebuild, getting into the draft this offseason, go ahead and follow our Dynasty channel, subscribe there, because we are in peak rookie season over on the Dynasty channel.